At 95, Clint Eastwood is finally pulling the mask off and letting people see the rough truths that shaped him and why he looks at figures like Rob Reiner the way he does today. Born Clinton Eastwood Jr. on May 31, 1930, in San Francisco, he came into a world wrecked by the Great Depression, where nothing was guaranteed and survival came first. No excuses. His family bounced all over California chasing any paycheck they could grab, and that chaos carved independence straight into his bones, teaching him to keep his emotions on lockdown. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. It costs nothing, but it really helps a lot. Clint was never the loud guy craving attention. He stayed quiet, stayed sharp, watched everyone, and only spoke when it mattered most. That calm, controlled energy later became his on-screen weapon. Music was his early escape, especially jazz and piano, shaping his sense of timing, mood, and restraint with that clean, no-frills style he became famous for. After high school, there was no easy road. Clint worked real-deal jobs, lifeguard, lumberjack, gas station attendant, grinding with everyday people and learning toughness the hard way. Love Hollywood stories? Subscribe now so you don't miss any new videos. It's free and it really supports the channel. That blue-collar mindset never left Clint, not for a second. Hollywood didn't roll out the red carpet either. After serving in the U.S. Army, he slipped into acting almost by accident, and Universal Pictures signed him in the mid-1950s, then tossed him aside just as fast. Studio executives mocked his looks, dragged his voice, and straight up said he had no charisma, like he didn't belong in the picture at all. Those words were meant to break him, but instead, they hardened him. Clint stayed patient, kept sharpening his skills, took whatever scraps he could get, and refused to turn into a studio-controlled puppet. He played the long game. Then came 1959, when Rawhide finally cracked the door open. For 8 long seasons, he played Rowdy Yates. The checks were steady, but creatively, he felt boxed in and restless, like he was wasting time. So he made a move that shocked everyone. Clint walked away from American TV and bet on Italian westerns, a gamble most people laughed at. Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy didn't just revive his career. A fistful of dollars for a few dollars more, and the good, the bad, and the ugly turned him into a force. His Man with No Name wasn't loud or flashy. He barely spoke, barely moved, but dominated every frame. The icy stare, slow steps, and heavy silence hit harder than a page of dialogue, and that raw difference is exactly why audiences couldn't look away. Eastwood quietly flipped the script on masculinity on screen, and he did it without making a scene. No big speeches, no flashy poses, no begging for approval. His power came from control, stillness, and that constant feeling that something dangerous was sitting just under the surface. Audiences felt that tension instantly, and it pulled them in hard. The success of those films didn't just bring fame, it handed Clint real leverage, the kind most actors never touch. For the first time, Hollywood gave an actor serious control over roles, choices, and direction. When Clint came back to Hollywood in the late 1960s and rolled straight through the 1970s, he wasn't negotiating anymore. He was calling the shots. Movies like Dirty Harry turned him into a box office machine. Harry Callahan was cold, blunt, and controversial, setting off non-stop arguments everywhere it played. Some people saw the character as a voice for public anger. Others thought he crossed lines. Clint never backed down. He said his characters weren't messages. They were flawed people trying to survive messed-up worlds. What really caught critics slipping was his range. He refused to stay stuck in one lane, bouncing from westerns to action, thrillers, dramas, even comedies without blinking. From Play Misty for Me to High Plains Drifter, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Every Which Way But Loose, and Escape from Alcatraz, Clint wasn't just surviving Hollywood, he was leveling up. Off camera, he soaked everything in, studying sets, pacing, performances, and decisions like a chess player planning 10 moves ahead. By the time Clint fully locked in as a director, his style was razor clean and confident, no wasted motion at all. Fewer takes, natural lighting, zero fluff. He trusted his actors and let scenes breathe instead of forcing fake emotion. His films dug into heavy territory: aging, regret, violence, redemption, and the price of bad decisions. No lectures, no hand-holding, just quiet moments that hit you later when you least expect it. That vision landed hard with Unforgiven in 1992. The film shattered the myth of the heroic gunslinger and exposed the damage hiding behind the legend. After that, the industry couldn't dismiss him anymore. Unforgiven earned Clint Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture, locking him in as a serious filmmaking heavyweight, no debate. He didn't slow down either. Projects like Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, Letters from Iwo Jima, Gran Torino, Changeling, and American Sniper stacked his reputation higher with every release. The respect didn't stop in the US. Europe honored him with 3 César Awards, proving his influence was worldwide. By 2000, Clint Eastwood wasn't just part of film history, he helped shape it. When the Venice Film Festival awarded him the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement, it wasn't about one role or one hit. It was recognition for decades built on moral gray zones, quiet emotion, and a directing voice that only got sharper with time. France didn't just admire Clint Eastwood from afar, they officially stamped his legacy. In 1994, a country that treats cinema like sacred art named him a commander, recognizing how deeply his work shook culture far beyond American borders. That respect only grew louder in 2007, when France awarded him the Legion of Honor, its highest civilian distinction, a move reserved for legends, not trends. That honor placed Clint in a rare circle of artists whose influence crosses nations, languages, and generations without losing impact. Taken together, these awards made one thing crystal clear. Eastwood wasn't just hot in his era, his work stuck. His legacy never belonged to just one country or one moment in time. It kept expanding, reshaping global cinema long after premieres ended and cameras shut off. Away from the spotlight, Clint's longest and most complicated relationship was his marriage to Margaret Neville Johnson, known as Maggie. They met in 1953, when Clint was broke, unknown, and barely holding things together with no safety net in sight. He bounced between odd jobs, lifeguard, laborer, anything that paid the bills, while his acting dreams kept slipping further away. Maggie was grounded, sharp, and steady, the total opposite of Clint's shaky future. She brought balance when everything else felt unstable. They married on December 19, 1953, starting a partnership that would stretch over 3 decades. In those early years, money stress was non-stop, and success felt like a distant rumor hanging just out of reach. Maggie stayed solid when everything around Clint felt shaky. She carried the emotional weight while he kept running into rejection after rejection, doors slamming shut again and again. Then Rawhide finally broke through in 1959, and life flipped fast. Fame, money, and attention hit all at once, and the pressure came right with it. As Clint's star exploded through Sergio Leone's Man with No Name films and later Dirty Harry, the marriage started feeling the heat non-stop. The spotlight didn't just change his career, it rewired their entire world. Clint's workload got heavier, his independence sharper, and the rhythm at home slowly slipped off balance. Maggie stayed away from Hollywood noise, choosing privacy and routine over red carpets and flashing cameras, and that distance quietly grew louder with time. The gap between Clint's public image and Maggie's private life kept widening. Long stretches apart became normal, and Clint's infidelities were widely known, something he later admitted without making excuses. Still, they stayed legally married for years, not out of denial, but because of obligation, history, and a shared sense of responsibility that wasn't easy to break. Together, they raised 2 children, Kyle Eastwood, born in 1968, carved his own lane as a respected jazz musician. Allison Eastwood, born in 1972, stepped into acting and filmmaking. Through it all, Maggie became the anchor, focused on stability and doing everything possible to shield the kids from Hollywood's chaos. In 1978, after 25 long years, Maggie and Clint Eastwood officially separated, but the story didn't end clean or fast. The divorce dragged on until 1984, proving just how tangled their lives, finances, and history had become. When it was finally settled, the shockwaves hit Hollywood hard. The settlement reflected Clint's massive rise and Maggie's years standing beside him while everything was still uncertain and fragile. Even after the split, Maggie Johnson Assure's place in Clint's life never disappeared. She was there before the fame, endured the pressure once it exploded, and helped raise their children far away from excess and chaos. The relationship wasn't perfect, not even close, but it left a mark. It shaped Clint's view of responsibility, family, and the real price that comes with chasing ambition at full speed. Now at 95, Clint Eastwood speaks with rare bluntness when looking back on more than 7 decades in Hollywood. He reflects not just on his own road, but on an industry that shifted fast and hard. His opinions about figures tied to those changes, including Rob Reiner, come from lived experience, not headlines or hype. When Clint talks about Reiner, there's no anger, no shots fired, no bitterness at all. His tone stays calm and thoughtful, rooted in concern that Hollywood has drifted from what it once valued. "I've never had a problem with Rob as a filmmaker," Eastwood says, giving credit without hesitation. He openly respects Reiner's early films, praising their humor, warmth, and real human connection. To Clint, those movies came from a time when Hollywood cared more about character and timing than pushing messages, and that difference still matters to him today. Stories were meant to pull people together, not slice them into teams, and that's what really gets under Eastwood's skin. It's not just Rob Reiner by himself, it's the cultural shift wrapped around him. Somewhere along the way, Clint says Hollywood stopped being curious. It became about certainty, Eastwood reflects. And in his eyes, certainty is dangerous when it comes to art. To Clint, Reiner now represents a Hollywood bubble that struggles with disagreement, often mistaking strong opinions for moral authority. Eastwood draws a hard line between that mindset and his own way of thinking. "I never believed my job was to tell people what to think," he says. "My job was to show people who they are." That difference matters to him, big time. Even his most controversial films dodged preaching. Whether it was westerns, war stories, or quiet character-driven films, Clint trusted the audience to figure things out for themselves. He insists the gap between him and Reiner isn't political, it's philosophical. "Rob wants to win arguments," Eastwood says. "I want to ask questions." That one line says everything. He looks back to a time when Hollywood thrived on creative tension. Artists with totally different views could still work together without forcing agreement. That world feels far away now. "There was a time you could disagree and still respect each other," Clint recalls. Today, disagreement gets treated like a personal flaw instead of part of growth. Reiner's loud activism reflects a bigger trend, entertainers confusing volume with virtue and certainty with truth. At 95, Eastwood isn't chasing approval. He's speaking from decades of experience, warning that moral certainty shuts doors. Storytelling was meant to leave wide open. Clint Eastwood says it without anger, more like a warning earned the hard way. He's careful not to paint himself as a victim either. "Nobody's silencing me," he says. "I've had my say." What truly worries him is the next generation of filmmakers, the ones boxed in by approved opinions and silent pressure. They're scared to be honest, and that fear shows. He adds something even sharper. To Clint, fear smothers creativity fast. "Fear has never made good art," he says without hesitation. When asked if Rob Reiner even hears this criticism, Eastwood pauses. "I don't know," he admits. people hear what they want to hear. He makes one thing clear, though. This isn't personal. It's about a system that rewards outrage over insight, noise over meaning. Rob didn't create that system, Eastwood says, but he's comfortable inside it. At 95, Clint has zero interest in settling scores. His tone stays calm, almost detached. Life's too short for grudges, he says. What matters now isn't awards, headlines, or box office numbers. It's freedom. The freedom to tell stories without filters, permission slips, or approval stamps. Honestly, Eastwood adds, I'd rather make a movie that makes people uncomfortable than one that tells them they're perfect. His truth about Reiner isn't explosive. It's heavy. It's the quiet frustration of an artist watching an industry trade curiosity for conformity. Hollywood used to be a place where outsiders belonged. Now, Eastwood says, everyone's trying to prove they're on the inside. And to Clint, that shift matters way more than any single name ever could. If you liked this breakdown and want more stories like it, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments.